where equality is about making sure that everybody is at par. Equity is about bringing those who are behind to the same level as the ones who are ahead. Mr. Speaker, the Equality Fund seeks to realize equity. And I want to say very proudly that I played a big role in the provision of this also in the Constitution, amongst other people. And Mr. Speaker, even though I agreed with some of my colleagues, I want to disagree in some respects, and especially in relation to the member from Samburu. I know that when we had the first policy, it had 14 counties. And I know that, there's a member who was contributing and kept referring to 14 counties. It's no longer 14 counties with good reason. There are no 14 counties in the Constitution. And the first policy tried to identify 14 counties based on history of what we have considered as marginalized in this country. And Mr. Speaker, after the implementation of those 14 counties, one of the things that was coming out clearly is that there are definitely pockets of marginalization in this country. I'll give you an example of my own constituency. And I'm glad that Mfangano Island and Gembe wards in my constituency, Mfangano is actually in our sub-county, have been included. And I want to say that one of the reasons that Mfangano Island has been included is, one, for you to reach Mfangano Island, you can only go by water. There is no road. There is no public transport by the government for you to go there. So if you have no money, you have no way of getting there. Let's start from there. Secondly, the ring road on Mfangano Island, for the very first time, has been done. And the president himself went there to launch the ring road. Why was he launching it? Not because he was doing a tarmac, but because they are doing a Maram road. Because in Mfangano Island, there is no Maram road. So if you want to tell me, let us be equal and look at counties in general, when will we ever reach Mfangano Island, where there is no Maram? If I go to in Mfangano Island, sometimes I take my photos in my constituency, and I hear people who are ignorant, when they see me in a motorbike or walking, they say you are doing PR. In Mfangano Island, I will use I'll use a boat to reach there. I will use a four-wheeler up to a point. I will use a motorbike up to a point. And then the areas I just have to walk. Even a motorbike can't reach. When we say that we are only going to areas, counties that are generally marginalized, when will we ever reach Mfangano Island? You can say the same thing in relation to parts of Gembe that has also been included. There are areas that have no schools, no roads, and they are perennially cut off. In fact, recently, when we had the rains, a place in my constituency called Sikri is always cut off. And people have to go by boat. Students' schools stop in order for the rains to stop. And if you are to wait for that, so that the places that are generally marginalized as counties to be reached, then when will we get there? We are creating new areas of marginalization. We must carry everybody together. I know that there are areas that are expert at pushing the agenda and by screaming marginalization, which is okay because they are marginalized. Our areas, we don't scream marginalization. We tend to scream democracy. But I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, we will be screaming democracy and marginalization. And if you want to know that there are areas, especially Luo Nyanza, I'm sorry to use the word Luo Nyanza, that have been marginalized because of our political leanings over years. Opposition areas never get money. In fact, I am so happy that we get CDF. The first time I saw a school, a wonderful school as I was passing in your constituency, actually. And when I was passing and I saw a nice school, and I was like, before I became an MP, and I said, wow, that's a nice school. Because it was a very transformative school. And I was told that school is built by CDF. And I was so proud to discover that it's my grandfather that actually donated that land. But if it weren't for CDF, a lot of schools in our areas would still be mud-walled because of our politics, which is opposition. And Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that even if you look at even the US, that they are going through elections now. There are people who are in government and people who are in opposition. That's the essence of democracy. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I actually want to say that we are missing the point. We are referring to the Constitution without even making reference to what that Constitution says in relation to marginalization. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that if you look at the interpretation clause of the Constitution, it says marginalization includes traditional community that out of a need or a desire to preserve its unique culture and identity from assimilation has remained outside the integrated social economic life of Kenya as a whole. That would include the SUBA people, or an indigenous community that has retained and maintained a traditional lifestyle and livelihood based on hunter or gatherer economy. That would include the fishing community, or pastoral persons or communities, whether they are a nomadic or settled community, that because of its relative geographic isolation has experienced only marginal participation in the integrated social and economic life of Kenya as a whole. So, Mr. Speaker, it actually talks to very many areas of the country. It doesn't only talk to northern Kenya, which I agree is marginalized, but so is my constituency. And I also want to say that if you look at the same interpretation section, it says marginalized group is defined as a group of people who, because of laws or practices before, on, or after the effective date, were or are disadvantaged by discrimination on one or more of the following grounds in Article 27(4). And those grounds include race, sex, pregnancy, marital status, health, ethnic or social origin, color, age, disability, religion, conscience, amongst other things. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the issue of marginalization, it is much bigger than what we are trying to limit it here. I want to agree that there are areas that have been marginalized, including northern Kenya, including coastal areas in Kenya, including SUBA areas. And that's why you see both SUBA North and South are included. That's why Ndiwa is included, because those are areas that have been marginalized. In fact, other parts of Nyanza and Homa Bay would be marginalized, save that God was gracious, and they have fine weather, and so they do well economically. Other areas may not have that, but that the weather, as I had one member talking to, is not included in the definition of marginalization. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I want to encourage and agree with my committee, the Budget Committee, that the arrears should be released so that we see the effective use of this fund. And I also want to say that when you give this money like Panadol to a person with malaria, you are not going to cure it. You need to give this medicine like you are giving serious medicine, maybe chloroquine. I don't know what the current medicine is because I don't get malaria anymore. But if the way you can give chloroquine to a person who has malaria, not Panadol. And because of that, we need to actually provide more money. In my constituency, for instance, it's only 19 million. What will 19 million do to Mfangano Island together with the Gembe? It's little. We are appreciating of it because we are included. But I want to say that even when that third policy comes, we must include those areas or pockets of marginalization, and we must remain true to the constitutional definition of marginalization. We are not marginalized because we speak loud. We are marginalized as a matter of fact. And I want to also agree with the members that have said that we must also bring into account what people are also getting. This is not the only money people are getting. We are getting CDF, we are getting this money, and we are getting allocation in ministries. And I sit in budget, and I can tell you that there are areas that are getting marginalization. They are getting money through public participation. They are getting money through direct allocation from ministries. It's just that my time is up. But there's a lot to be checked when we are dealing with marginalization. I support.
The Honorable MILLIE, the Honorable Joshua Kimilu, MP for Kaiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this important motion about